bird on a tree. I'm just sitting here. I got time. It's clear to see from up here. The world seems small.
Hi everyone, this is Monica Ramirez, Warrior of Love, and you're in Soul Talk. And thank you for being here. Today we have John Bertoli, that he is a very, very interesting person to be interviewing, and I have the pleasure to have accepted my invitation for being in Soul Talk. And let me tell you a little bit of John. John is a lifelong contactee, intuitive medium, light language activator, and from an early childhood, John struggled to make sense of the high strangeness occurring in his life, but not only to those around him. Trying to talk about his experience was the more often was not met with a ridicule and distant. He's a messenger of a remembrance of the light language activator. And John, please, with your own words, tell us a little bit more who you are and what do you do?
Okay, who I am. That's kind of a complicated question because there's many aspects to all of us. I just happen to be aware of many of the aspects. So let me back up. I was born and raised in Western Massachusetts, and I was born in the mid 60s. So growing up through the 70s, the area where I grew up is an energetic hotspot. There's a lot of different vortex areas in that part of the country. It's New England, and but from an early age, I was always seeing things and hearing voices and seeing ships, and no one would believe me. And after a while, somewhere, you get to be about 6, 7 years old, and little Johnny's lying again because he said he saw this and he said he saw that. And I just decided to not say anything at all anymore. You were constantly, as a child, it was bad enough. And when I got into my teens and I tried to talk to my friends about some of the things I had seen or felt, you're on drugs, you're lying, you're drunk, you're, all of the above, you're crazy, So there was a large period of my life that I suppressed what was happening to me. I didn't let a lot of people know. And I was seeing things and having experiences very, very often, sometimes daily. And as I got into my early adulthood, into my into my 30s, it really started to kick in. And there was a period of my life where I'd gone through a breakup with a long-term relationship. And at that point, maybe it was triggered by the trauma, the emotional trauma of the breakup or something like that. And granted, I've also, I come from some abuse as a child. There was about 5 or 6 years of severe abuse from the age of about 5 onward from my father. And so that emotion was compounded by the trauma from earlier in childhood. And I think the intensity of it, that really opened up a lot of awareness and opened up a lot of, memory, karmic memory, other incarnations. And a lot of people like to refer to them as past life. And I don't refer to them as past life only. I mean, yes, it's past life as far as a reference for us in this particular perspective, but in the scheme of things, there's no time, it's now. So I refer to them as other incarnations and other aspects of myself, and it's all happening simultaneously. So, things like driving home on the school bus from kindergarten at 11:30 in the morning and looking up and seeing a triangular polished metal craft traveling along next to the bus, and nobody else sees it. And and then when I start to think back to how that age, I remember being very, very sick and laying in my bed and looking in the hallway, and the hallway outside my bedroom, there was a woman standing there, and she was wearing blue, and she had this thing over her head. And I didn't know it until I did much more digging later into my soul memory and regressive memories, that was actually Mary that was there, and things like that. So I had some interactions with some of the angelics. I've had interactions with extraterrestrials of both negative energy and more so of the positive light energies. And so I guess, cut to the chase, it got so bad that I was either going to be crazy and in a rubber room and highly medicated, or I was going to embrace it and understand it and let it in. And I chose the latter. And that just opened up everything at that point when I went and pursued it and really with vigor. And I remember one afternoon exercising, and I've always exercised in like a meditative state. I don't need music or anything like that. It's just kind of like a moving meditation because my body wants to move. And there's no reason I can't bring the mind into it as I'm doing that. And I'm meditating one time, and I remember I was listening to some toning and some light language by Christine Day, and she was speaking Pleiadian. And when she started toning, I remember starting to feel this speech coming out of me, and that was when I was activated. And it was a dieta to nama asya pikikamba wata tenchen simi are bishop to ba abaku kompwa and then the ancient Pleiadian. And at that point, the visions I had were, it knocked all the wind out of me. I remember the tears were pouring so much that the front of my shirt was wet, and just, I can't even describe what I felt when that much awareness came in all at once like that. I was physically shaken, but mentally and emotionally, and then spiritually, it was just like, okay, hey, you remember this? And it was just this huge slap of this massive energy. And at that moment, everything changed profoundly.
I can relate completely with you. When I was little, my sister told me, because I was telling her, she's 11 years older than me, and I used to tell her, hey, I just have this conversation with this being that came and visit me and so forth. And she started telling me, do not tell anyone. Do not hide those things. So I try to hide all those things and all the visions and all the conversations. She always asked me, what are the conversations? Who do you see? But she didn't want me to express it to anyone else. And she told me, or else they're going to take you to the doctor and they're going to... So, and if you go any time to the psychologist, do not talk about this ever. And it became like a norm to hide it from everyone until I actually...
It's damaging. When you have something that is that profound, and I think as we get older in life, and we can take control of peer pressure and things like that. And I think going through those experiences and all that ridicule, it really did give me clarity as to what my purpose is here. Through meditation, what are the big questions that everybody asks? Who am I? Why am I here? Where do I come from? Right? They're the eons old questions. So, of course, those were the questions that I asked in deep meditation, and the answer was very clear. It's like, you are an eternal soul. You have lived millions upon millions of different incarnations in all different types of star systems, different types of realities, different types of consciousness, and you're currently evolving and gaining this wisdom and knowledge through these intimate reactions and experiences to bring them to source and the true the true origin of where I came from. And then the other question is like, okay, well, what am I doing here? Why am I here? Well, you made a choice, and this may sound cliche because it's been over and over in the spiritual community, but yeah, we volunteered to come to at a certain time and live a certain amount of incarnations and experience these different variations of those incarnations that really, they bring the foundation of our understanding and our knowing of this planet and of Earth humans in general. And so the purpose of me coming here is severalfold, very much like yourself, is we have a series of jobs. One of which is I'm a messenger. And I'm a messenger of, and I like to use the term messenger of remembrance, where I aid others in remembering who they are. And, I think that there's a really an interesting conundrum in the spiritual community where some people claim, I will teach you light language. Well, that's not the way I understand it. It's like these are inherent. I can help you remember how to speak your dialect, but I can't teach you something you already know, and it's something you own, So the dialects, the different dialects of light language reflect the incarnations in the past that particular soul has taken, and those whatever energies have come from those different incarnations to aid in this particular incarnation. And so apparently, I have three main dialects. One is the ancient Pleiadian, then there's an Arcturian dialect, and there's also an Orion dialect. And each one of them, when we talk about light language, I'm sure that most of your viewers know what light language is. But if I can just talk about that for a second, what it is it's a speech, it's an expression of energy from the soul that bypasses the intellect and the ego. And it's layered upon layered and compressed information and emotion and wisdom and basically the all. And it's been said that even a short phrase of light language can contain an entire library's worth of information. So what is light language? It's an expression, but it can also be a tool that can be used in practicality in our physical reality. And that's one of the things that I work on most with my clients and people that I work with in the spiritual aspect. So if I look at, somebody would say, well, what do you mean light language? How can that change physical reality? Well, there's a lot of, if we look at what it is, it's very interesting. So I always take the scenario of the decrepit, tiny little ancient martial arts man that puts his hand right through a piece of stone. Well, how does he do that? It's not physical strength, is it? No, it's energy that's been channeled down through him. It's soul energy that's been channeled down into his body. So if we can take that and we can use it in that aspect to improve our everyday life, now we have something from the spiritual world that is a tangible, functional thing that can help us. So how do we do that, right? So here's an example. Like I'm a personal trainer. I specialize in muscle development and injury rehab, and that's what I do for work. And a lot of my clients actually we have meetings that are not, trainer client, but, as friends or as groups or people that meet as a group in a spiritual sense. And so some of my clients have actually asked me to unlock their light speech for them. So now that they have their light speech, and there's a whole process of that, and that's one of my purposes as well, and we can talk about that after. But the way that that these clients have been able to take their light speech and use it and focus it in their life. So they're like, if they're trying to make, say, just on a physical sense alone, they're trying to do a personal record or something in the gym, something to bring their body to a certain level of performance. And because you have that ego mind talking you out of there, and you put that bar on your back, and it's like, wow, this is really, really heavy. Oh my God, this is heavy. Can I do this? Oh my God. You have that mind going, right? But if you use your light speech, this is immediately shut down. You're channeling that energy and you can focus. Now you can pull spiritual energy into your body and you can create the lift, or you can create the however, whatever it is you're trying to do. Now that can be done, say, it doesn't have to be used in the physical sense. Here's another example. I had a friend of mine's, very close brothers that are friends of mine, and their sister I'd known for years and years. And she's been known to have a little bit of an anger issue through the years. And so she's carrying a lot of energy that when she finally gets so frustrated, she'll go off on pretty much anyone. And I happen to be convenient one day. So she pulls in the driveway at 70 miles an hour, comes running up the walk, screaming at the top of her lungs. And I looked her dead in the eye and said, I am a humpa puti tinana eshimikiamo mampoi. Tata aname eshimitinjan ma aila rehemikoya. And she put her head down like this, and she just nodded her head and turned around and walked away.
Wow. Wow. It is. I want to go back with what you just said in some things, because I have so many questions in that. I do light language, and I use it as an activation in my meditations to people. But I hide that for a long time. I only use it when I was taking a shower before, when I was alone.
Water, that's interesting. We can talk about that too.
Because I was afraid to actually remember when I was little. They told me to hide all all my interactions I have with my guides or ETs or different beings that they came. So for so many years, it took me a lot to actually say I am a channeler. And light language is not even human language, so that was more harder for me. And when I took a class of light language, I knew they were not teaching me how to speak my native language, but they were teaching me how to have the courage to actually speak it out loud and publicly. That's what it was for me. Maybe for them it was announced in different ways or whatever, but I knew what I was doing there. To learning in fact, I took a class with Marian Sabino too. And I knew it was about having the courage to actually start doing it live, without fearing the judgment of people. And I know now that they can't put me in a mental hospital because I'm completely sane. but it was that part, and I want to think that many of the teachers that they're out there teaching light language, it is just that they're teaching basically, or they should announce it as a courage and or self-esteem and believing in themselves, not as I'm going to teach you to talk your own dialect, because that is misinterpret when they are saying that. And you're right in that area, but that's what I feel they are doing, because I have take two, because I was needing to trust myself to actually go out in public and do it. I believe.
Can I interject for just a second?
Yes.
Because I spent 8 months up at the Isetti Ranch doing groups of activation, and sometimes we'd have like 50, 60 people in a group, and that was pretty amazing. But Jan Doolittle is a close friend that I met in Colorado in Evergreen, and she speaks light language, and she had this little activation type of thing, right? And so what it was is each of the chakras has its own sacred sound. And so the sound that actually, when the throat chakra, the communication center, the ability to express and receive as well, if that's blocked up, you're not going to be able to push it out. And then you get the ego fighting the blocked throat chakra, and your ego fighting that. You're like, it doesn't want to let this speech come out because your ego mind does not understand it, and it's not ever going to. It's not for this part of your consciousness. It's something altogether different. And so that courage thing, right? So we would do this thing to where we would have everybody go, ha, 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 and they would make that sacred sound and clear it, right? But just prior to that, there was a channel I did, and there was a light language song that came through that was actually asked, and I'll just sing it for a second. It goes, Liano no lahia lahie lahie Liano no lahia lahie, and it repeats. That's all it is. And so everybody sings that song because of that exact courage thing. And as they're singing the song, I would have everybody, and I would write it alphabetically down so they could, read it and everything. And everybody would be singing it, and I would say, don't stop. And then I would say to them, you realize you're all singing light language right now. And so the ego mind was destroyed at that point. It had nothing, had no argument, because they're already doing it. So whatever, so when you look at that, your test, sorry about that. When you looked at your class and they taught you they were essentially doing the same thing, getting you past whatever mechanism it takes to get it so you can speak. That's all that matters. I don't, and there's not one method that's better than the other. If it works, then it works, And so it's so interesting for me to hear people explain how they were activated and how they handled it, and when they finally felt free to actually express and use it, in everyday life. And I just feel that energy, I think it's just pretty amazing that, you have something that is inside you. And as a child, you're told not to do this and not, and here we are now recording a video for as many people to see this as possible. So think about the dynamic there. I think that's pretty cool.
Yes, it is. I have a question that I have heard this a long time ago. What is the difference between talking in tongues and light language?
Could you repeat that?
I am not a religious person, but every time that someone hear me, they're saying, "Oh, you're talking in tongues." Like,
speaking in tongues.
It sounds like religious for me, that part. It's not light language, but I might have a misconception about it. That's why I wanted to ask you. What is
about how do I feel if somebody asked me the same thing? Okay, so here it is, right? If we're brought to a certain level of consciousness, we have access to the library, of our past, right? So during the Pentecostals do this, okay? They do bring them to a certain level of consciousness to where they're accessing those languages. But at that point, they put a rein on it, and they put a chain around it that says, this is the Holy Spirit speaking. It's only channel. It has nothing to do with you, when it has everything to do with you. It is the backbone to the source. It is the direct line to where you came from, what you are, why you are, how you are. It's everything. It's the voice of your soul. So religion, and I'll probably have people angry at me for this, but religion is a control structure. And that's all it is. They've taken the teachings of Jesus and his true teachings and omitted most of it out of the Bible. Why did they come up with the New Testament? They didn't like the Old Testament. Okay, let's be serious, right? And all religions, and it was really interesting. I was raised Irish Catholic, and so that's a really strict religion. You're going to hell if you don't, But my understanding of God and conversations that I've had with Source, that's not how God is. And if you want to use God or whatever name or whatever, but the religion. So what I find in many of these religions is they will bring their people up to a certain level of consciousness to where they're feeling the energy, and I feel Jesus. Well, you feel love, you feel yourself. You feel if you're, people praying in the name of Jesus. Well, who was Jesus? Well, the Jesus I know was an ascended master who had his teachings taken away. And if you were to speak to him right now, he would say, "That's not what I said."
I wanted to start a religion
But
to
he would
start.
say, "But it's okay that you say it."
You're totally right. I grew up in a Catholic family. I studied in a Catholic school, in fact, with nuns. So it was very constricted. They kicked me out a bunch of times every time I asked a question, of course, because I had
Yeah. Why?
I always
No,
ask
you're no good. Why? You're no good.
yes, like
That's
how God
why
can
should
live
have
in
4 letters.
how God can live in trees and dogs in nature, but not in me. It's like, and of course, they kicked me out a bunch of times of my morning classes of religion because I asked many questions that they could not answer or they did not want to answer. And it is fine. It's the process and is whatever it is. But that also, now that I am an adult, I've been an artist for 44 years, painter, and I start doing my light language through my paintings.
I see that behind you. Yes.
No, yeah, that's a
Yes.
and
And that's actually really interesting, the painting and how many different types of expression in light language. So light language, well, it's a vibrational expression of energy. It just happens to be in the form of sound, right? But yours is visual vibration because color is frequency as well. So that's like there's light language and I can see coding all over that thing, by the way. Yeah. 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 And what's, it's like we're talking about this and when we open to our awareness and we allow a lot of the structures, the control structures that have been forced on us as children, and we let that get out of the way, we can start to see and allow ourselves to see much more energetically intent. Now I'm looking at that painting right now, and my crown is lighting up. I could probably go into a reading and get some information from that, which maybe you did or did not intend, just because of your hand was on there. But again, what is light language? It's an expression. Now, the sound aspect of it is very powerful because it does affect our nervous systems and our physical bodies. And that's why a lot of people tone, and then it's actually, if you think of Om and you think of what that feels like, if you perform that correctly, you can feel it come up from your feet all the way up into your legs, up through your chest cavity, and then vibrate that pineal gland when you close that throat. And, you can feel it in the back of your ears. And, and then, of course, the crown starts to light up as the energy comes in. But again, we are vibration. And so when I look at things, like I'll drive down the road and the way I look at life is very, very different because I'm very aware of the suppressed technologies and so forth and how we have to, the state of life that we have right now is far below what the human race deserves or should be at. And I think we both agree to that. But what I do try to do as best as I can, to my best ability, is to bring not only to myself, bring my higher abilities into my life and utilize these gifts that we've been given, but to do my best to help others remember that they too are channels, they too are mediums, they are intuitives. Everybody is. That we're all of these things is whether you're going to accept it yourself. And I have people who go, well, can you teach me to be psychic? No, but I might be able to help you remember that you are. And like one of my, well, how do I do that? And I said, well, maybe try this technique where those very subtle thoughts in the back of your mind that come to you first, try bringing those to the front. That's the intuition. That's the truth. And try working on that. Now, discernment again, yes.
There are different exercises that you can do to develop that. I teach channeling. Everybody's a channeler, first of all.
Yes.
either
Yes.
consciously or unconsciously. And what what happened to me is I was needing to get the courage before. Remember, we talk about that. And what I do with my clients, it is just teaching them techniques too, so they can self-trust themselves. And it's just simple techniques that they can develop all the psychic gifts that are available for them in the level wherever they are. It's not that I am, like I tell everybody, there is not a magic wand that anyone has that like, I can heal you or I can do whatever. That would be amazing. It doesn't exist. But there are different techniques that they can learn, so like that they can develop and trust themselves in their own gifts they already have available for them. And that's what it is. All the coaches or teachers that we exist in the world, we're just being we're just guiding people how to develop that.
Yes.
That's all it is, because it's just a
And
remembering.
the courage of it, having the courage, right?
Yes.
I think that I mean, you keyed on something that's really, really important. Okay, because what is the worst case scenario? Somebody speaks light language is don't speak that. Somebody tells them not to speak it or tells them that they're crazy or something like that. But if they have their ability to access that language, they can be using that. They don't have to speak it in front of people to utilize it and bring it into their life. If I have anxiety or if I feel anxiety come through me, whether it's mine or from the collective, and I have learned to tell the difference, I immediately go into prayer. I go into speaking my dialect, and it just washes it right through, and then I'm back to being calm. I probably speak light language 50, 60 times a day. It's in everything I do. It supercharges my intent towards what I'm doing. If I'm doing, and let's just say an everyday task or a project, you're an artist, you understand that creative energy. And as you're really applying something, say you're making something for someone that you care about too. Now you're creating a spiritual harmonic, because you have the added love. And then whether you're speaking your light language or you're keeping it to yourself, but it's there, it's present, it's that intent going into whatever it is that you're creating. And if you can look at it that way, it can be a physical object. Well, what about a better version of ourselves? It's like, so it's kind of a good way to work on mindfulness too, because a lot of people will say, well, I'm not good at that. Well, your subconscious is going to pick up that and then reinforce that because you just said that.
Yeah, we are going to
So
be.
rather than do that, what would happen is if every time we started feeling doubt, we immediately went to light speech, it would be a lot less doubt. Now you're gaining more confidence. So there's another tangible way you can improve yourself, get rid of anxiety. You have a job interview and you're very nervous about going to a job interview. Pray in your light speech the entire way to go. As you're resting, it will quiet this monkey mind, and it'll bring you and it'll center you, and it'll bring you to more peace. Those are really simple ways of using it.
And for healing, for depression, for sadness, for confusion, I use them for all that too, because it helps in every single aspect of your life. You want to do a change, transformation, or you want to break through barriers. It helps for everything, in fact.
Everything. It's like, I can't imagine, like, I would hear it as a child, but I couldn't speak it. And I would always hear a woman's voice in the house, and it was almost like she was in the next room. And for some reason, young child, you'd say, oh, it's just my mother. And then I'd look out the window and she's out in the garden and there's nobody home. Like, well, who was just here? It's always like that. And I would hear these languages. And as I started to see my guides and they started to show themselves to me, yeah, you've been talking to me for a long time. I get it. You see these different beings. Yeah.
To this day, I still sometimes I yes, it's like language that I'm listening, but sometimes I feel like there is that veil of the different dimensions, parallel realities that are around us, that I believe they're picking through. So the sound is the one that is easier to pick through through those veils than
Yes.
even the same light. So
Can
I
I ask you a question? I mean, you're clearly wide awake and understand this. There is a portal that actually is in my apartment that opens sometimes and closes. When it does it, it does this cracking noise. Have you heard that before?
yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Right. And when you were talking about that, all I could hear, coming down was, ask her about that. Ask her about that. This question about for myself, ask her if she heard that crack, because it's like, it's actually woken me up. And like I've laid in, like where the portal is, it's a small room outside my bedroom. They've actually pushed my bed where I've jumped and, beings and, stuff like that, but that, I mean, it's all my whole life. So I don't really get scared by that
Yeah.
really at all anymore. I did as a child. That scared me immensely when I was a little boy.
Yes, my daughter suffered from that, and my son too. He's at 25, and my daughter is 15. But they're quite awake, but they're still not used to it, to that kind of energy, because sometimes they can hear it or they can feel it or sense it. And mom, what is going on? It's like, don't worry. It's like we're just gonna put protections for. We don't want different kinds of energies coming through. You just energies that are actually.
Well, they're gonna come through one way or the other, as long as we don't let them connect. And
Yeah.
and energy is drawn to its likeness. So if you're shining bright, the dark's not really wanting to get zapped by the bug light.
Yeah. Just
Maybe
remember,
not so much.
just remember, teenagers, the mood swings and so forth.
Oh
They
yeah,
can
well we have
attract
raging
that.
hormones.
Yeah, so that's why it's like, okay, let me clear you out, or let me clear this space out. Like, because yeah, I can be vibrating all the time, great, but who's the people around me? What are they thinking, feeling, seeing, etc.? What are they open to? Sometimes you have to battle those kind of energies that they're not even yours at all.
What's really, really interesting too, as this whole shift progresses, that even my wife and I, we can't go into crowds for very long because the collective energy is so heavy. We went to a meeting. A friend was in a play, and we were both nauseous and had to leave as soon as possible. We stayed for the whole thing. But it was like that energy, that control energy made us both. And she's extremely sensitive. My wife's a little powerhouse. And it was really interesting how both of us, and when we got about maybe 100 yards out of the parking lot, the energy lifted and it was just gone like that, both of us at the same time. We're like, oh, I'm like, you okay? She's, I'm okay. It was like, but really that collective energy, I think that a lot of time people misinterpret it. I don't feel good today. Well, maybe it's not them. Maybe they're feeling the collective and they're not understanding that that's not actually theirs. The way I tell the difference is if I'm feeling anxiety or depression or anything like that, if I have no memory or thoughts that go along with it, then it's not mine. And I just do a clearing and wash it through. If it is mine, I address it.
And you can feel the sense of energy. I feel like this is not yours.
You can, yeah, like a dark thought will come. Oh, no. Yeah.
It's a
And
different imprint of energy when it's yours and when it's the collective or someone else. And if you ask who's this energy from, sometimes you get the image, okay, this is coming from so and so, and that nothing to do with you at all.
do you do a lot of astral travel?
I not very good in astro traveling. I know I do it unconsciously, but I can't remember.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
can't remember.
Some of us are like I'm very, very busy at night, and I wake up exhausted. And my sleep patterns over the past 3 years, because of this shift, they're awful. I wake up in the middle of the night, wide awake, and I get up, I go to the gym, if 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, well, get something done. Right. But, those energies, the collective energies that spike like that, that's very, very interesting too. When the Schumann resonance will spike, how people around us, react. I can feel it. But a lot of people, they lose their minds. The emotion just, gets supercharged.
What I was I've been a night owl for many years, and I have temporaries that I actually sleep good. But when I was trying to force myself to sleep, it was because I was trying to fit in with the society standards.
Sure.
And when I let go that part of that resistance of trying to fit in a society standards of at what time you go to sleep, at what time you get up. That's when actually it started working better for me. I surrendered that part. Yes, I take naps in the day, but I go to sleep sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. That's when I go to sleep. I might sleep 4 or 5 hours, and then I wake me up full of energy. And it's only slept 3 or 4 hours, and it's like, oh God, what do I do? I can't sleep. Okay, go back to work and start writing or start painting, start doing something. And
Creating, yeah.
when I run out of energy, okay, take a nap, and so on. So I try
Sounds like
to,
me. Yeah.
but I stop resisting precisely to
Right.
the society standards of being awake or being asleep.
Well, the joke too is the black sheep of the family. It's like like every time I do one of these shows, there's another. I'm looking at the screen at another black sheep. It's like, because our story is so similar. Growing up, being highly aware, higher awareness, with all kinds of things happening in you and to you, and not having any support structure and talk anybody. Very rarely, do people like us find someone earlier in life that does support them. And I mean, yeah, it happens, but rarely. And then I think what's really interesting is like people like us, where we're all part of that first wave to clear, as much of this karmic, build up as possible for the second waivers behind us. And the children, these kids are amazing too. The awareness of these kids at their ages, like, as I said, having a conversation with my wife's youngest, and he's 13. You swear to God, I'm talking to a 40-year-old. He's so wise. They're beyond their years, and he actually speaks light language too. It's really interesting. We were meditating, and he was with us, and he just started speaking, and then like it was nothing, and walked away.
Yeah,
It's like cool.
Yeah, sometimes my daughter surprised me. She's 15, and sometimes I am passing through working with my own self, with my own emotions, and she just come and tell me just certain words that I was needing to hear. It's like, oh my God, thank God you're my daughter. Because that's what it was.
The synchronicity of it, yes, that's amazing. Yeah, and you think about it too, is like when you understand from a soul's perspective that you orchestrated your entire life. You chose this, you chose that, you chose this, and you chose that for these reasons. And it's a script. And when we finally give into that and understand that, no, we can't fight, against what is inevitable. You can't. If your awareness is expanding, you're not going to be able to suppress it. It's going to do it anyway. I mean, you're in for a ride if you don't. And I think that a lot of the people that have really pushed back on the awareness and back on consciousness, that's a really rocky road. They're gonna have to, there's going to be many more incarnations to be able to get through that awareness. And, that's a big gerbil wheel to be on that wheel over and over and over. And I look at a lot of the folks that are like, I mean, you understand Texas, Texas is what is it? It's the biggest pickup truck and light beer, capital of the world. I mean, it's not the spiritual capital of America. That's for sure. It's the opposite, in fact, and really interesting that another point I wanted to bring up is people that are very aware are also people that are strategically planted in really heavy, dense, energetic areas to anchor energy, lighter energy in here. So I come from Massachusetts in that area, and that was really dark. They sent me to Colorado to charge back up. I went back to Massachusetts for 7 years, that went back to Colorado, charged up, then went to Washington, and then came down to Texas, and it's like, it's all these, but, go here, you're going to go here for a little while. Okay. That little while is actually going to be 7 years. Now you know what I mean? And I look at all these different changes of movement, and it always falls on a sacred number. Always. So there's a complete structure. You're going to, on this date, you're going here for X amount of time, and I just started to get into a little bit of numerology because I'm starting to see it it's in my face so much more now. But, it's like all these different aspects we talk about the awareness, we talk about being an intuitive, a channel, using light language, and your clairvoyancy and your empathy and all these different aspects. They're really one thing, and it's really just what you really are as a being expressing. And we've had all these abilities stripped away so that we can actually have an authentic experience, but those experiences are coming to an end, as far as the evolution of this particular planet. And so a lot of people that are, they're coming into awareness out of nowhere. I've had friends of mine that were by no means spiritual contact me out of nowhere and say, you said something to me 4 years ago and it completely changed my life. And I'm like, I did? And what? Yes. And then, but they get it all this time later. And then that was the trigger, that there was a soul agreement for me to hand them that trigger. And then it worked, and it was a delayed reaction. And then 5 years later, they're wide awake. And then you see all these different changes. And there are people that I wouldn't have guessed in a million years would be completely wide awake at this point. And others that I thought were very, very, tuned in are, they're going in a wrong direction. They're like, well, okay, if that's the way you want to go, I respect it. However, there's a swamp over there, you know what I mean? Okay, if that's your soul path, fine. But, I think that, like, what's important to me, and the reason that I even do these interviews, is I'm trying, if I can help one person in any single tiny little way, then it was worth my time doing this. I talk about my experiences, but I only talk about them if it's going to have some value to somebody else. Yes. I could write a book, that so many things have happened to me that I've forgotten incredible things that have happened because other stuff happened, and I can only retain so much, conscious memory. But when, your show, you think about people that would watch your show, what would bring their interest to watch your show? Because they have these questions inside them that they haven't found the answers to. And I mean, for many, many years, I watched every single show. I wanted to find people that felt like I did, that had the same questions and all these things. And I started studying these people, and I resonated with some of them and not with others. And then, some of them were like my heroes. And I spent 8 months at the SETI Ranch, and I have a background in live music, lighting, and audio and all that. Anyway, so I actually ran the conference center up there and did all the audio video stuff, and was responsible for basically putting on every workshop and presentation. So I got to see a lot of people in the spiritual community. I mean, a whole lot of people, several hundred in that season. And some of which, watching these videos that I used to think that, wow, this person is so enlightened. Then you speak to them in real life, and that's not the person that was in the video.
Oh,
they're real life. They are something entirely different, right? And so that happened with several people. And so my heroes really disappointed me. And I was like, okay, so that was a really, really important lesson, because I had these expectations of these people, and I was going to go to the East Seti Ranch and I was going to learn all these answers. I've been trying to get there for 15 years, and I was so excited. And I realized that I didn't need to go to the East Seti Ranch to get these answers. They were with me the whole time. And I didn't need to talk. I didn't need to go to someone else for an answer. I have the answers within me, but what I did need to remember was interacting with these people. There is value there. Some people will hold triggers for you. Some people you'll have a soul agreement with. Some people will trigger something that will connect you, networking to other people you're supposed to be connected with. Mm-hmm. So all these shows like this, some people will resonate, some people will not. But there's an interconnection that goes on, right? And so having spent all this time with all these different world-renowned experts, some of which were complete whack jobs, and I was like, I felt like such a fool sometimes, because I can't believe I actually had admiration for that person. Now that I meet that person, and they're like a complete train wreck. And so then I looked at it, I was like, well, wait a minute, there's purpose in everything in all of that. So I went through that whole thing of not getting the answers that I wanted, but I was getting the answers I wanted. I wasn't interpreting it correctly. It wasn't given to me as in, this is the way you do it, and this is how it is. It was through action, and I had to learn through perspective and interaction, and just straight up experiencing those little letdowns and things. And what that did is it pointed me this way rather than that way.
I agree with you. Many people, when they're channeling, they are not, you can hear their voice and so forth, but in reality, that knowledge or that compassion or that love or whatever energy they're doing, it is coming through the channel. It is not them. So they will not even remember what they told you at all. And
when I channel like that, if I'm doing a guide, absolutely, it's not us, but we have to allow them to come through. They'll ask,
yes,
is it okay? And if it's a light being, they will ask. If they don't ask, then I don't let them in.
Yes. Out. Like, please.
No, not today, guys. Thanks. Yeah, gotta go.
John, what is the best way that you can give an advice for start tunneling before you do light language, so like that we can give something to.
What is the advice as to how to activate or to
how to tone?
How to tone?
Many people talk like language, but how to tone?
Okay, so tone is about feeling. Okay, so if you were doing a tone, first of all, you want to get into a relaxed position so your body's not tense in any way, and you take some nice deep breaths. But the tone is going to be dictated by the feeling or the energy that is active in your body at the time. So if I hit I can feel my chest cavity, but I'm not feeling everything. So what I'll do is I'll play with the tone until I feel my entire body vibrate. So as I could feel the whole structure down my legs, I could feel the bottoms of my feet vibrating. So now that's the tone that would work for my body today. And so then what I do is I try to come up with some type of a slow cadence so it's relaxed. So it'd be a nice. And as I'm exhaling, I'm relaxing more and more and more and more. And with every exhalation, you relax more and more. And that way, there's not resistance in the muscles by have them being tight. And that vibration can travel up through your nervous system and do its job. The nervous system is that network that controls your nerve impulses and electrical impulses. But there's frequency to that too. And like static electricity, things like that can actually throw the balance of your body off. So you can put yourself back into balance with that tone, whatever that tone. And so some people it may be a full octave up. It might be a, you have to play with it and feel. Best way to do that, close your eyes. When you feel it, you'll know that you hit that particular tone. And then, but toning is, if you remember that everything you do is fueled by your intent. Mm-hmm. So why am I toning? I don't know. Well, then it's probably not going to do too much. But why am I toning? Because I want to balance my body. So at the same time, you need to use your visualization. You need to go into your third eye, your mind's eye, and you need to remember what your light body looks like. We have a physical body, an emotional body, a mental body, the light body. There's a series that just go from the physical all the way up, and they progress right up to the dimensions. And as we evolve or as we ascend, then we're going to ascend to our fifth dimensional bodies, and we'll have unity consciousness at that point. We'll ascend back out. We came from there in the first place, so we'll remember at that point. Oh yeah, now I remember. Okay, yeah, and everything, But it's really interesting how, because of energy shifting, is like we are able to look up into the lower aspects of these other dimensions, and you can see that from physical. And if anybody doesn't know how to see, there's a technique I use called the soft stare, where I meditate. I actually meditate with my eyes open. So what I'll do is I'll look at a spot. I'll look directly at the camera. Now I'm looking directly at the camera, but now I'm going to soften my focus, and I'm going to bring my peripheral vision into it. So I'm not really staring at a pinpoint. I'm allowing my eyes to just kind of use the peripheral vision. Then as I'm controlling my breathing, and with every exhale, relaxing more and more, I'll start to see movement around, and I'll start to see patterns that look very much like the sacred drawings you'll see in the Vedic stuff, or the mandalas. And I mean, any of these beautiful structures that has been created for consciousness and creation, you can see that stuff quite easily. I mean, I can look in the sky and see the flower of life. But it's allowing. How do I do this? I allow myself to do it. I don't allow, like you said, all those years of control. Don't say this, and society controlling us. I've never fit into any mold, and I still don't. Yeah.
But now we're not trying to fit in. That's the difference between the old us and the new us. We're not trying. We already fit in with ourselves, and that's what it is important for us. And before, yes, even my schedule, I was trying to fit in even my schedule to go to sleep. Now I don't fight it. It's like, but that's something that we came to understand. It took us years to get where we are now. That self-acceptance was more important than other people's acceptance.
Oh, absolutely. And that's, I have to say that the self-acceptance is probably the thing that has brought me peace. I was a really angry young man coming from a lot of abuse as a kid, and I had a very, very bad temper, and I got into like I used to fight a lot and things like that. It took, a long time to release anger and karmic anger and things that I'd carried from other incarnations. But it was probably, realistically, I think I was 41 when I finally really just embraced everything, and I'm almost 57 now. But I walked up into the forest in Evergreen, Colorado, and it was just silent, and it was snowing. And I remember kneeling down, and just I could feel the pulse of the planet. I could feel Gaia's energy, and just tears were just pouring, and I just purged. And I don't know how long I was there, but my pants were actually frozen to the ground and had to pull myself up. And I was kneeling there for a long, long time. But when I got up, and I could barely walk because my legs were frozen, because I was in this, I don't know if I went out of body, but I wasn't fully conscious in the body at that point either. But I remember weeping so deeply that my rib cage and everything hurt afterwards, but feeling this, like walking out of the forest and feeling like it was almost like being born. It was a massive amount of pain, and then it was just nothing but bliss, and there was just nothing negative. It was just I felt like I could barely touch the ground at that point when I walked out of that forest that day. And that day right there, I mean, I've had some really intense, profound days. That one was as intense as when Archangel Michael looked me in the eye. And those memories, it's just, I look back at that, and it's just so much more than the physical aspects of it, because of, the memory of all the ethereal things that were going on, and by being a sensitive, how fast those images come, and you can't describe it because there's so much coming so fast, and that emotion is every bit as fast with it, and you walk out there just, I don't even know what to say, and like, I had a friend of mine come over after one of those experiences, and I must have been like in shock. And he says, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah." "You're sure you're okay?" I'm like, "Oh yeah."
My ex-husband, that was my ex-husband for that reason. Like he was an atheist, so everything of all this, it was craziness. Energy was crazy for him, and it's atheist, and we're still friends, but the thing is, for someone that do not understand people that work with energy, that is channeling, that is receiving messages and so forth, it must be very shocking for them, because there's things
they think we're crazy. They think we're out of our minds, nuts.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And it's very hard for us to sometimes even to explain, because we're trying to understand what just happened, what the information I just received, what is the download that I just have. Like, wait, give me time, and it is shocking for them. It is it's shocking for them. We're still friends, but yeah.
It's funny, the dynamic there, though. You have you that's wide open and him that's not, right? Yes. And I had a relationship like that too. Where it was, and there's purpose in absolutely everything. When we have what we call negative experiences, is, if we can deem what is the core of that experience for? Why do we have that? What do we get? What are we getting from this? How are we learning and growing from these experiences? It's not always easy to look at it in that light either.
He was one of my best teachers on learning how to honor myself and how to believe in myself, even when not even the person that is sleeping with you believes in you. So that was a deeper. He was the best teacher I had, and I have told him that. In fact, thank you, because without that, I would not trust so much in myself and my own gifts. And I know I not understand the complexity what I'm talking about. He just said, "Oh, you're crazy." Like, Proud I am for you guys. For me, I'm
Well,
perfectly
I don't think we're crazy. I think everybody else is.
sane. Who can say what
Because
is
it,
crazy?
because if you have abilities that you're not using, that's crazy. You have these things that are at your fingertips that can really improve your everyday life. I mean, yes, I mean, there are aspects of the spiritual awareness that, that most people that, no, that doesn't happen. It's a lie. It's only in the movies. Really? Want to come over to my house for a little while? Stay here, sit right here for a little bit. You want me to call somebody? Oh, I'm not going to use the phone. You know what I mean? But stuff like that. I like the one where the guy at the East Eddy Ranch would not believe that the Sasquatch people existed, right? And he had a trailer up there, and in the middle of the night, one went up to the side of his trailer and went bam on the side, and he's a believer now. A handprint on the side of his trailer. Yeah. Just they're not trying to harm anybody, that they wanted him to understand that. Yeah. But you start to look into these different beings, and again, it's all one thing. It's like we have a wider perspective. It's kind of like if you look at the light spectrum, right? There's other spectrums that are far beyond what we can see. So we don't use our physical eyes very often. We use our spiritual vision, and we can see these other realms because we've accepted it and we've allowed ourselves to be what our true nature is. And I think that the one thing, if we can get anybody to help anybody today, it would be to really start to accept yourself as to what you really are. You're something incredibly special. You're immortal. You're never going to die. You're going to live many, 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 many lives, but you have all these abilities and you have all this knowledge and wisdom, but it's being suppressed if you don't allow yourself to be you. If you don't allow, embrace yourselves. And I mean, through this conversation we've had, clearly, we've done the same thing. We've had to, because you're faced with all this information and all these experiences, and if you're standing there and a gigantic black shadow goes right by you, and you can feel that being past you, or you're seeing craft in the sky, regular, a lot of them, or you're being abducted, and then things like that, or all these things. It's all part of the exact same thing, which is just a larger reality. And, society has really worked hard to program people into believing that these things don't exist. But if you look back through history, which has been manipulated, of course, but if you look back into a lot of the indigenous cultures, they all talk about the same types of things. They talk about different types of beings. They talk about beings coming to this world from other worlds. They talk about beings that can come in and out of these dimensions. They talk about creator beings. This is all the true, small, giants, different types of beings that are not humanoids, some beings that are just energy. That's all they are, is energy. They do not look, not even a little bit human, and all this stuff, you're part of this. We are part of this intricate, beautiful painting that the Creator has made. And it's all interconnected. And one of the easiest ways to communicate is to talk from your heart. And it doesn't have to be in the form of a dialect. You paint, create, standing and holding a door for someone and smiling. That's light language. That's expression of energy and through emotion and feeling. And that's really all light language is. But if we can take these tools again and make our everyday life better, why wouldn't we do that?
Oh my God, I've been loving this conversation, but we have to, and then I would like to have the part two with you of this conversation.
We can do a part two.
would you like something else to add before we close?
How about just the blessing for everyone?
Yes, please.
Ipia tatadama ashipabokam ma hai alebi titititatadoshbu I zimiana amenkiampo atatashemapeti halaya tatatapu batu mimiminian na ehemikimqua latoshaba asemetinkan tatapiminihinadi lasai pamon atai tatashemama. Accept yourself. Accept yourself and remember.
It is done. Thank you, John. It was really my pleasure to have you here. And hey guys, thank you for being here. And if this video resonated with you, please share it. It may help someone else. And thank you for being you. This is Monica Ramirez, and thank you for being in Soul Talk.
You and me, we meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free. Sometimes you need to go and take a step back to see the truth around you. From a distance you can tell. You and me were meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free. You and me, meant to be in the great outdoors.